Welcome to the Author to Authority podcast. And today, if you are a solopreneur, a consultant, a professional, kind of an entrepreneur with maybe very little staff, and you're thinking to yourself, marketing, I don't have time for marketing. I got so many other things on my plate. Well, then you are going to want to listen to today's episode of the Author to Authority podcast. I want to welcome Shelly Niehaus. Hopefully, I said that correctly. And she helps service based businesses get more clients by developing a solid personal brand and a list building strategy with aligned content that connects and converts. The entrepreneurial journey is not for the faint of heart. However, after 2 decades and 3 different industries of owning her businesses, Shelly has learned that the flexibility and freedom to do what you love outweighs the risk. Along the way, she discovered her true passion was marketing and helping other businesses. Shelly's a firm believer that marketing does not have to be complicated, it can be fun. Shelly has helped numerous service based businesses overcome the overwhelm of marketing by helping them create a strategy to improve their communication and create greater connections with their clients. Welcome to the show, Shelly.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here today.
Well, I was already enjoying our pre-conversation, the one that goes on before I hit go live. So I know we're going to have a really good time today. I think probably one of the obvious first questions to ask is, when you are that solopreneur, professional consultant speaker, can you market with limited time?
I think you definitely can. When you have your own business, we all wear the hats. We're doing all the things, and it's really hard sometimes to decide what to prioritize. So the key with good marketing is you really have to have a mindset shift. You have to work
Mhm.
smarter and not harder. And another thing is you have to realize that you are now a producer of content. And that mindset is you are the expert, you're the producer of content. So instead of getting online and trying to respond to every single comment and DM and being in that consumption mode, if you switch your mindset to producer mode and you really think you approach your marketing with that type of mindset, and how can you put out content that is really aligned with what your audience wants to hear, and you work smarter, not harder, you can compress it down into just a few hours a week. You get the right content out there and get off that hamster wheel of content creation that I hear so many business owners just lament about because they feel like they constantly have to be churning out new content all the time to stay relevant.
It's funny you said that. There was quite a few reasons why I started this podcast, but one of them was this was so much easier than me having to produce all of my own content.
Amen.
I could just borrow other people's ideas and let them talk about it. But and then that was one thing. It's become a whole lot more since I've started the podcast, but I love the fact that you talk about, the priority of it and the fact that it's a mindset shift and not to get caught on the hamster wheel, but to prioritize in a way that, fits your schedule and in a way that is consistent. The one thing I've thought about is you will get better results doing one thing consistently each week, even if it's a 5-minute video each week. Let's say on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's, yeah, one video link, LinkedIn's usually pretty good. But, like that 1 5-minute video on LinkedIn every week will drive more results than just, going on for 6 days out of the month straight, posting, and then nothing for the rest of the month.
I agree. And that's a common trap I see a lot of entrepreneurs fall in is they, get that New Year's energy with their content and they make it so hard and so complicated. And they're going to post 30 posts over the next 30 days. And then they lose steam and they're exhausted. And so I really believe, and you said it right, consistency is key. I don't care. I would rather you go all in and do really well in one place, whether that is your podcast or LinkedIn or YouTube. Pick one place to show up consistently and go. We all have different bandwidths and different seasons of our life.
Mm.
So if your bandwidth is you only can do one video a week, 4 posts a month, I would rather see you do 4 posts a month consistently for 6 months than to do that start and stop, because it's so confusing to your audience. They don't know if you're on or you're off, if you've gone quiet, crickets. So just consistency is key, and just showing up with that, providing knowledge
Mm.
and expertise. And that's really all you have to do. And that's how we simplify it. Stop making it so hard and giving yourself all these expectations if you don't have the bandwidth or you don't have the system or the team. And that's something that really irritates me about the online marketing world is you have these big influencers with these big platforms and these big teams saying you have to be doing all these things all the time. Well, that's great for them. They have a massive team and they've been doing it for years. For the person who's just
Yeah.
starting out, they're like, wait a minute, I can barely, get my 3 to 6 posts out a month or whatever. How am I supposed to do this? So my passion is, how can we take people that, are just starting or maybe just looking for more consistency and give them a system that really allows them to
Mm.
thrive?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think sometimes we get it in our head that it's more difficult than it is. One thing I've been focusing on is, and I have to admit, on LinkedIn, I'm not as consistent. My goal was to get the podcast consistent, and I'm there. So now I work on getting some other things consistent. But the one thing that I've been thinking about with LinkedIn is just sometimes how you can just let the stories come. So this morning, it's like a mini tree that's between my house and my neighbor's house. The tree's actually on both property lines. And it's a nice tree. It's okay. And by fall, you've got all of these berries on it. Like, the thing is just loaded with all these red berries, and they don't fall off. A few fall off, they just stay there. And during the winter, they ice over, they freeze, they dry out. I mean, they don't look all that great. Let's just put it this way at this time of year. But I was sitting there this morning having breakfast, and my neighbor had told me that come February, March, because we're relatively new to living here, you'll see birds eating the berries. So this morning I was sitting there and birds were eating the berries. So I snapped off a picture and I talked about the fact that sometimes we think that what we have to offer is useless and it doesn't make a difference. Yet to these birds, those dried up, frozen, not pleasant looking berries are the difference between life and death for those birds.
You're right. I love that you talked about just organic content. It can come to you. We don't have to sometimes have these massive plans and strategies. It's at the end of the day, marketing is about conversation. And what you just did is you thought, okay, this is a teaching moment. This is a conversation I want to have. And you literally took that conversation and you took it to the world. And sometimes, back to complicating things, we lose sight of that marketing is just relationships and it's all about conversations. So how do we create conversations in a way that's authentic to us? And one of the things I always teach is personal branding. And personal branding really is consists of three things. It's your name, it's your face, and it's how you make people feel. And by creating that conversation, that's what you're making people feel. And in this world where people are so great craving connection, if you're going to show up and do marketing, maybe spend the time really having those conversations rather than pushing and just blasting people with a lot of this like pre-generated content, because that falls on deaf ears. They're tired of it. They have seen it 1,000 times. They've heard it. So if you can come up with unique content that just is your voice, how you make people feel, and make people feel seen and heard, you're going to stand out from the crowd automatically.
Yeah, and it's not, post buy my stuff, buy my products, buy my services. I mean, it's not that you don't post about those things. You do, just not all the time.
You have to create a relationship, and the
Yeah.
first part of creating content, if you're just starting out and you just need to start posting and just, I would say, start creating content that connects. And that's exactly what
Yeah.
you just did, you know, and then add that positioning content that positions you as the authority. And then you do the inviting, which is you invite them on that next step, like sign up for your lead magnet, buy your thing. But the connection post, if you just are saying, okay, I'm going to start on LinkedIn this month, or I'm going to be more consistent, if you could just do connection posts for your first month, because you have to bring those people in before they're ever going to do
Yes.
that know, like, and trust factor to even think about buying your stuff.
Couldn't agree with you more. And I think that's where we complicate it. We're going to switch gears in a minute, but audience, it's that time again. RTI Publishing has great resources that you can use to not only write a book that converts readers into clients, but will also help you scale your business. Listen to this very short ad, and we will be right back. Welcome back. Shelly, I've just really been enjoying this conversation, and I want to let's dig in a little bit deeper here because I know you've come prepared. We've just been kind of talking about it generally, but I know you've come prepared with some great hints and tips for us, and so I'm going to let you loose to share those, and then we'll talk a bit more.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I hear so commonly as a coach that just helps entrepreneurs with their marketing is that it's kind of the thing that falls off the platter. If you go through the buffet and you're putting all the food in, and then your plate's so overflowing that the shrimp are falling off the platter. And so their marketing is the last thing they add to the plate. It's always the last thing. They're not that, you know, motivated or excited. So it's like the shrimp at the buffet that gets added on at the end and it just falls off the plate because there's no more room. So we have to start thinking about, you know, your marketing is your oxygen mask. It is your oxygen mask. And if you don't put your own oxygen mask on first, you're not going to be able to help other people. And the way that you show up in the world and let people really see how they can work with you is through your marketing. So we talked about it earlier. It's marketing is simple. We're not going to make it super complicated. It's about creating conversations. But the key to working on your marketing is to find the time. So I really teach my clients 5 simple steps that allow them to start to just think about how to create time to put that oxygen mask on first for their marketing. And the first one we already talked about earlier in the episode, but it's you have to have that mindset shift. You have to get out of that consumption mode that you're constantly scrolling, you're on the endless scroll, you're trying to keep up with everyone else's content because that puts you in that consumer mindset. And if you're in a consumer mindset, you can't show up as your best self and create content that resonates with your audience. So I always say when you do your marketing, you have to make that mindset shift. And I really encourage you to create your content outside of the platforms, outside of, because you need to be able to think, to do that deep work that is so necessary to really add value and not just be reactive or stuff like that. And so I really encourage people to have that mindset shift. And then the second thing is back to the marketing going on at the end. We need to find the time to work on our marketing. And so one of the exercises I always work with my clients on is we do just a simple time tracking. I know as creatives, many of you guys are cringing because you're like, I don't want to track my time. But when you go to the
I
gym,
don't have time to track my time.
exactly. But when you go to the gym or you go work with a nutrition, what's the first thing they have you do? You have to track your calories or your macros or whatever, because if you don't know what's going on, how do you know what to fix? And so I always, you don't have to make this really hard. Grab an app, only do it for, you know, a week max. This is not a lifestyle you're adapting. But if you don't understand where you're actually using your time or how it's being spent, how do we know what to fix it? And Laura Vanderkam, she's a time management expert. She has a podcast, Before Breakfast, but she has just a simple 168-hour spreadsheet that I love. I'm like, just go download that because it's easy and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So we have to figure out where our time is going, because then we will know maybe where to fix it. So if you will jump on that bandwagon with me, it's just for a few days. Let's figure out where it is. Okay, so now we know where our time is. You know, we've changed our mindset. We know where our time is going. how can we start batching? And I always say batching is your business superpower. What activities, like-minded activities, can you put together to really start to create momentum? Because when you're task
Mm.
switching, and I see this so many times in entrepreneurs, they're maybe recording a podcast and they're going to go write for a few hours, and then they're going to go maybe to a networking event, and by the time they tell me their schedule, I'm exhausted just listening to it. I'm like, you are wasting so much energy going back and forth between tasks. So how can we batch those tasks together into similar activities? Can we record all of our podcasts in one block, maybe for a certain time? Or can we maybe go do a deep work writing afternoon or content creation? So look at your common activities, as you've tracked your time, and how can you batch them together? Because batching is going to be your superpower, and it's really going to free up that time, but mostly your mental energy. It's going to free up your mental energy to allow you to start actually thinking about your marketing so that you're actually prioritizing it. So the third thing I always say is to really work on batching. Okay, so now you've identified some activities, and you're maybe you've even created that ideal week. Again, it's never one of those things that's set in stone, but if you have a general idea of, maybe Monday is going to be my writing day, Wednesday is going to be my networking day, whatever, you can always personalize it and tailor it as it goes, but you at least
Yeah.
have a plan. You're not waking up going, oh my goodness, what am I going to work on today? Which is what leads me into my fourth thing. And this is what I do in my business. And when I say it, to me, it made such common sense. But so many people are like, wow, I've never thought about that before. So I started talking about theme days. I have theme days in my business. So for me, because I'm a weirdo and love alliteration, I have marketing Mondays. Like I said, marketing Mondays, and that is when I actually work on my marketing. And I do that because I'm putting my marketing, my oxygen mask on before at you, because once you get pulled into meetings and client work and all that, you have lost control. So I actually block Mondays. I don't have meetings on my calendar. For me, it's my reward. I have no makeup on. I can be in my sweats, and I sit down and I work on my marketing. It is my deep work time, and that's when I create my content. And a lot of us, sometimes we have to create external content for marketing, but we also have to create internal content for our clients and our courses and stuff like that. So it's just a content creation day, but it allows you to do it first, to make it the priority. And then you can pat yourself on the back because you've done it. So for me, my schedule is I have, marketing on Mondays, Tuesdays and Thursdays are client calls. Wednesdays, I work on it's podcast recording days or and not networking days. And then I build in margin. Fridays are my flex Fridays, because if you schedule 40 hours a week, there's no margin. So what if,
Yeah.
your internet goes down? Or for those of you that have kids at home, they have a Monday off of school. Now you're like, oh my goodness, I've lost a day in my week. So Fridays are my flex Fridays because it gives me the opportunity to go back and back clean up for maybe one of the days that
Yeah.
something happened. And then the last
Yeah.
one that I really say is you got to schedule it, because if it doesn't get scheduled, it doesn't get done. So go pull out your Google Calendar, your paper planner, whatever it is, and put it on the calendar, because you can, track your time and batch and create your ideal week and even come up with these great theme days. But if you don't do the final step and actually go block time on your calendar so that other people can't be putting meetings on your calendar, it's not going to work. So the final step is to actually go in and schedule it, because what gets scheduled gets done. Those are my 5
Shelly,
steps.
how dare you? How dare you schedule time when you don't do client calls? Like, that's just not what entrepreneurs do. Don't you know that? And of course, I'm saying it with a very big smile and sarcastic voice because it's,
We
you
get in
know,
that
the,
trap
the
though.
yeah, we do. We get into that trap of thinking we have to be available all the time to everybody. And one of the freeing things for me has been to actually set aside days where I don't do client calls. Now I have times during the week when I do client calls, and I have days that just are blocked off. I call time spot holders because those are my days that I work on the things that I need to work on. Sometimes I'm working on big projects that I can't go from working on the project, do a podcast, work with a client, go back into it. I need that concentrated time to be able to do some of the things that I do, including, I'm working on my next book. Haven't announced that yet, so I guess I just did, but I'm starting to work on my next book and just yeah, it's okay.
And you
It's
show up
okay.
better. You'll when you time block, and maybe you have Tuesdays and Thursdays for calls, you're in the momentum, you're in the group, and you're actually doing your customers and clients a favor because you're showing up better for them because
Yeah.
you've had that downtime to to do the deep work. So I find I'm a much better coach when I actually do it with that type of schedule.
The other thing for me, I find by the end of the week, I'm just tired. Like Fridays, I do call it client calls on Fridays. Like I have no energy left. Like I am done. I've spent all week working and working hard. So I finally just decided that, I might occasionally, if it's really important client call, sometimes I have to book them in on a Friday morning, but I do not book any more calls anymore for Friday afternoon because you are not getting the best me. You are getting the tired Kim is watching the clock, just waiting for that last call to happen so she could kind of crash. That's not the Kim you want to be dealing with when it's important things like writing your book.
Well, and I didn't mention it when I was talking about this, but my reward to myself is that if I worked Monday through Friday through Thursday and I check those boxes, I go do something fun on Friday. So Flex Friday does
Mm,
not mean you have to work. Go ride your bike, go get a massage, whatever is restorative for you. That actually is my incentive to work hard those first 4 days because I know I have a play date or with myself, just like something fun to go do if I can do it. Now it does it always happen? No. But I do reward myself with that because it is
yeah.
my reward for working efficiently.
Yeah, my reward has a name. It's called Michael's, the arts and crafts store.
See, whatever wherever you want to go, that's what it's all about.
Now, here's something interesting. Um, I used to go into these stores in like Fabricland and different places. Like I love to craft, and I'd come out and I'd buy $100, hundreds of dollars worth of stuff that I never did. So one day I was in the store and I realized something. I realized that it was not actually working on the projects that made me happy, though I do like working on the projects. I love the imagination process. When you walk into the store and you imagine all the things you want to make. And I realized that I never had to buy anything to be able to
Oh,
walk through the store and imagine. So now I only, okay, I can't say this 100% because um, as a side hobby, I don't know, have you ever heard of the Cricut machines?
yes.
Okay, so I am actually a Cricut contributing artist.
Oh, cool.
I create designs. I have people in my company create designs, and they are approved by Cricut and they are available on Cricut Design Space for other people to use. So I, as part of that, I'm doing projects to promote the designs I do. So I am now buying things ahead just because I have to have a continuous stream of projects. But normally I don't buy ahead anymore. Like my personal projects, if I'm just working on something for me, I will buy what I need when it's on sale and work on the project. And then I don't really buy ahead until like I'm about 90% done that project. And then I will go out and buy the next one. But in the meantime, I go to Michael's and I walk around and I imagine and it makes my heart happy.
How wonderful that you're that self-aware though. You're like, I don't need to have a shopping cart full of things. I can just, you love that creative imagination process.
Well, I think, sometimes we think we have to buy, but when you look at it emotionally, you don't need to buy to fulfill that emotional need. Like, I have this need to create, but I can go into the store and I can imagine,
Hmm.
and I don't necessarily have to buy. And
I
I've
love
learned
that.
too that, especially with the major purchases, like, things that would be like 100, 200 or more dollars, I don't buy the first time I go into the store. So I will look at it and I will wait at least 24 to 48 hours before making that decision. And, if at that point I'm still really craving that thing, then I'll probably go back and look at it again and see how much I really want to do this thing, or is it just the fun of buying it?
And do you normally wind up buying it, or do you decide that it was just the fun of buying it?
Most times I just decide it's the fun of buying it.
Well,
Yeah, I even online shopping now. A lot of times I'll put things in the cart because I like putting things in the cart. And then I let it sit for 24 hours or 48. And then if I go back and I still really want it or I need it, okay. But a lot of times I go back and I'm like, I don't really need that. It was
that
just the emotional thing at the time of putting it in the cart. Plus, here's a little hint and trick. It's not with every single company, but a lot of companies, if you put something in the cart and you wait a day or
mm,
two, so don't log out, just put it in the cart and shut it down. Sometimes they'll send you coupons for like 10% off, 15% off, free shipping because they want you to buy.
my husband actually works in the digital marketing industry, and he's like, just don't buy it yet. You probably will get a coupon. He's always telling me that.
Shelly, we did not get time to get to your story today, so we will probably have to have you back on another time so you can share a little bit about your business story. But here's the question that I ask every person who comes on the show who is an author. So there's a question if you
Okay.
are an author, and there's a question if you are not an author. So here is your not the author question. Shelly, if you were to write a book to build your business, what would you write about?
I actually would love, I have my own podcast. It's Educated, Empowered, Inspired. And I educate people on a topic. I empower them with a practical and tactical step that they can take this week, and then I inspire them. And I would love to have a companion book to that podcast where, because I see so many people sitting around just with a culture of consumption. They are just watching and watching and binging. And, I love master classes and Netflix, but at the end of the day, we got to go out and do something with what we've learned. So it would be a way to really educate them on topics and then empower them. Like, what are we going to do about this? How, and of course, mine would be around the business world, but how are we going to take the 5 steps that I just talked to you guys about today? And how are you going to get started this week with making a real change in your business? And then at the end, leave them inspired, because we all need a little bit more light and love in this world, and connection and community. So I always love just inspiring stories that really lift each other up and encourage us on this entrepreneurial journey. Because you said in my bio, it's not for the faint of heart. And there are days that I just want to throw in the towel and I want to go back and get a 9-to-5 job. And I know we've all been there. So the inspiration piece is like, keep going, just keep going. Wherever you are, keep going, because it's gonna, if you're in a tough season, it will turn around. Or if you're in a season of abundance, enjoy that season. So just keep going. So that would be the overarching theme for my book.
Love it. Love it. Well, we've got a couple of minutes left here, Shelly. What I would love for you to do is share one final thought with us. And for those who have really enjoyed this conversation today, how can they connect with you?
Well, I would just say, if you do nothing else, if you have no other takeaway from this conversation, shift your mindset. If you can just shift your mindset from that consumer mode where I always joke that you're trying to find the ends of Instagram, where you're just scrolling, and it doesn't exist. I guarantee you there's no end of Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn. But just when you get online, be really strategic about how you spend your time. You're the producer now. So what kind of content are you going to put out into the world that's going to add value? But also, if you're really limited on time, how can you show up and build relationships? How can you go into people's messages or comments and really add value and build relationships in the online space, and not just create more noise? My dad always used to say, don't talk just to hear yourself talk. That was something I was told so many times growing up. And I see so many people in the online space kind of just doing that. They're just talking to create content, to hear themselves talk. So really shift that mindset, see how it
Mhm.
can impact your marketing. And if you just do that one thing, you will see a huge change in just how your content converts, and that you're now off that hamster wheel of content creation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it.
How can people connect with you, Shelly?
Well, I'm on all social channels is at Shelly Niehaus. LinkedIn is a great way to find me, as well as Instagram. Those are probably the two platforms that I'm on the most. I have a couple of freebies out there that are around this topic about how to incorporate business resources that allow you to save time. They're linked in all my social profiles, as well as my website. But just think about how you can actually start overcoming that overwhelm. And you don't have to live in overwhelm. You can always work smarter, not harder. And these tools and strategies that I taught today are the first step to implementing it and just getting control of that chaos, and not being the reactive entrepreneur, but the proactive entrepreneur that is out there in control of their own destiny and really showing up and making a difference.
And how can they find your podcast?
It is Educated, Empowered, Inspired Podcast, and I am on iTunes as well as Spotify and all the other platforms, and YouTube.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Shelly. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful, and I just really enjoyed. I love. I just hope that this marketing made simple will resonate with someone, and that they just can walk away with thinking that it doesn't have to be hard. If I can just lighten that burden and make it everyone's day a little lighter, then it was just a great conversation. So thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. Audience, where do you go next? So I would love for you to scan back about 5 episodes to how to start and grow your email list with Tanya Brody. If you are on YouTube, you know the routine. The thumbnail is here somewhere. I don't know where my daughter puts it, but it's here. And if you're on your favorite podcast app, you're only going to have to do one little swipe back to find that episode. Well, audience, have a great day, and we will see you on the very next episode. Bye now.